Okay, okay. Hello, I'm A from M3, and I'm going to talk about a quick overview of NPCs and avatars. Uh, the idea is that something that came up a while ago in M3 is the that we are exploring the use of NPCs as tools in virtual worlds. And it links to the Avatar Interop meetup because avatars are basically descent from NPCs and player characters. There are three main types of NPC in general, and they can be separated into document style NPCs, into state machine NPCs, and deep learning and other technology related NPCs. To give practical examples of this, for example, document NPCs are the typical NPC that you could find in some old school RPG that it's simply a text dump. And state machine NPC is more complicated, like a quest giver or someone that requires some item to give you something else or some events in the world and so on. And then the deep learning and related NPCs are more like what Webaverse is doing right now with their open AI bindings and so on. So given this classification, I've been mostly interested in document NPCs. They originate in RPGs, for example, in Morrowind or other computer RPGs. The key mechanic is that highlighted keywords activate new dialogue. Let me show a screenshot. If anyone here hasn't played Morrowind, when you talk to some NPC, you get this window. On the right, you get a list of keywords that are activated as you talk to the NPC. And then you see these blue keywords that you can click on. When you click on a keyword, you get a new text dump and new keywords can open up. It's basically like a document, like a wiki, like a small wiki. The utility of this is that you can define book-like objects or more conversational type of NPCs. You can simulate a conversation or simply simulate an object like a manual or a normal book. They can support simple procedures like a formula, like a currency converter, give a random link, a random shock, or something like that. And also, we can use wallet interactions, for example, to enable more keywords. For example, if there's a token present in the wallet, new keywords can become available, for example. The way I did it, that's very simple and shows the basic idea, is that you can get a JSON object, and there's a begin keyword with some text, and then within the text you can have like this kind of keyword surrounded by hash symbols. When you click the help, you get the text contained in the help key. And then you get more keywords and you click them and you get more text and so on. It's a really simple format. I should explain that. The more advanced NPCs are like what Ash is trying to do in Hyperfine, and it's what you can find in games like Fallout or Oblivion and so on, or MMORPGs, where they have more complicated states and conditions, and world events and dialogue are all together into one. So, for example, if you talk to another NPC, it can affect the dialogue that you get with another NPC. There can be variables, like usually known as flags, conditions, loops, and so on. And here, wallet interactions are another possibility that open up. I'm not going to talk about web or style AI NPC because it's a really complicated topic. And the myth of this small talk is that what connects NPC, the idea of NPC to avatars and what we are doing. A key element here is that we can leverage VRM and use VRM to embody the NPCs that we define very easily with some JSON. We, we can use a library of generic purpose animations for different kinds of expressions. We can use them for idling. For example, some MMORPGs will let users, while offline, leave their player character with some items for sale. In our case, it could be like some topics that you like to tell people, or objects that you want to sell, and so on. You can also have a party that follows you, and the avatars that follow you can have things that you want people to know about. You can use them to tell stories, to, for example, typical scripted storytelling in RPGs, and we can use them for quests, like many games. The common thread is that avatars are not only something that you use yourself, but you can use them and the wearables to make NPCs that could express things that maybe you don't want to wear yourself, but can help you tell something through the idea of an NPC. But now let's talk about the possibilities of this. What could we do with NPCs? We can passively expose topics that are not dry, like the typical blog post or a book or an article. An NPC can talk like a normal person will do, or in character. We can give them pathfinding abilities or the ability to wander around the world. We can use them to deliver dynamic data. For example, an NPC could be generated on the fly based on a feed or blockchain events or anything like that, or world data. We can also use them to embody the game logic in a plot, for example. Instead of having some mystery logic in a plot in some script that has no body, we can turn it into some sort of Westworld kind of thing where the NPC embodies the control panel of the place. They can be applications for themselves. For example, having an NPC follow you that does some specific task can become a new kind of application. And we can generate them procedurally. For example, an NPC that creates another. Imagine talking to an NPC and picking options to create a new one for you, for example, or based on the data in your wallet. And then we can use the avatar expressiveness to convey ideas. For example, an NPC that teaches you in VR how to make a dance move or something like that. What could we do to make all of this happen and more? We can work on JSON formats that make NPCs portable. We can build a library of reusable assets for making NPCs. We can explore use cases together, and we can try implementing NPCs in more than one system. We can work on open source NPC editors, and maybe an GLTF extension for simple NPCs embedded into GLTF. And that was it. It's a very short talk, so if you have any questions, that will be great.
One thing I want to do with NPCs, and it's like a interop kind of thing, and maybe we could get it going across multiple games. Is I want my players to be able to write an NPC script, like a behavior, not actual logic, just like a dialogue tree script, and
Yes.
upload it to our multiplayer server, just a website thing, and they'll be able to update it whenever they can. And I want them to associate it with to a model. So whenever my other users, because my game's usually single player, Anarchy Arcade, whenever one of my other users interacts with their NPC in one of their arcades, because we spawn each other in arcades all the time, they interact with the dialogue tree and they don't know what it's going to tell them. It's going to tell them perhaps something new that this person wrote. And if we could share that dialogue tree server, it would be just like a JSON structure, just some data. If we had a way to like share that between apps, then like the Gin NPC in Anarchy Arcade could behave the same way as the Gin NPC in Hyperfy and as the one in Webiverse and so on.
Yeah. Also, the idea of having like interacting with your wallet gives them a portable. You can give them state even if they are not in the same system. So, for example, if you have a token, the same NPC can behave differently in different systems. Like it adds to the idea of decentralized NPCs, I think.
The type of NPC I have in mind is just a simple dialogue tree, not AI or anything like that. So it
Yeah,
would
like
behave kind
like
of the
the
same, and it wouldn't really need any token or anything. It would just need
sure.
the tree, the dialogue with it.
Let me go to the slide with the JSON. Can you see the JSON in the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's really simple.
So that is the format for a Hyperfy dialogue there.
No, this is just mine, but it's nothing special. Like I'm up to making a new one or whatever. Like it's just what I made, but the hyperfile is more complicated. But I mean, something like this is really simple. I also added like some features like random lines and whatnot, but to make them more interesting. But yeah,
Absolutely, and the
it's
thing is that the dialogue tree that I developed for Anarchy Arcade is very different than that, and I think that everybody's is going to be different when they develop one. So we got to
yeah,
figure out like a something that we all have in common with our different systems, and be able to convert our dialogues to this interoperable format. Very much like exporting a blend file as a GLB to send it to somebody, and then they import it into whatever app. It's like a portable art asset format. We need a portable
yeah.
NPC
But
dialogue structure.
but this is much simpler. Like it's just literally like a key value object. Like it's extremely
Well, I would say that
like
mine's even more simple. I think that everybody that comes up with one, if theirs isn't simple, they'll say that it's necessarily not simple or
yeah.
necessarily more complex. So we will have to, I think, find like the common ground between what everybody
Sure.
has going.
Sure, I think that we can come up with something because it will be really cool to have like the same NPC in many places.
It
Yeah,
sounds
and
Or
like it
maybe
would be like a structure, like a
dynamic.
function, like the function, you just would have to have the input, like you're gonna either talk to them or not, how far away they are, some spatial data, and
it's
then yeah,
actually
the
it's
payload.
it's just the dialogue you need because each game is going to have the different interaction thing, so you can't really define how far away, but you just need to like have what happens when they do interact with them. And the big thing, the
Right.
difference that I think I see between this format and the one that I had for my game was like presenting the user with different options at different points in the dialogue, and then going down different branches of the dialogue tree based on what their responses were.
Yeah,
I would love to see something like that because I think that lets you like talk to the NPCs and try to get information out of them. It's a classic game thing, It's nothing special,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I like it hooked
Yeah,
up.
this one is very simple for because it's more like a document than. But yeah, it's the
Yeah,
same thing. Like I think that we can, as a group of interested people, work out something that works for everyone.
interesting. And I guess essentially every time you talk to them, you could log an interaction and then feed it back to the AI so they get smarter across the worlds. They still have one brain or state that's shared, but they learn from all the different metaverses from maybe other users. Because say like Sis showed up to some metaverse I wasn't there, but my NPCs were there, and you talk to them. You might have told them something And now that NPC, is in another metaverse and comes to me and says, "Hey, I just talked to Sith in this other metaverse. He's got some information for you."
It would be awesome to get there. I think
It's
what
like
we're going to start
it's like
out with,
mail.
though,
It's like
is
NPC mail.
Yeah.
that the system that I mentioned a second ago, like possible interop of the dialogue of just the person. The only way you would get surprised, it was a one-way system, right? You're only pulling the dialogue from the server. You're not mutating it with what you're pushing to it. So you would only be surprised if the person went in and changed the dialogue on you from the last time that you talked to them.
Yeah, I think that we need to start with something very simple and work up our way from there.
True.
So, anyone
I have a
else?
question. Another
Yeah.
one.
Sure.
It's a Hyperfly specific question about quests. When somebody completes a quest, can you use this format in Hyperfly, right? This dialogue.
No, this is not Hyperfine.
Okay, so this is just a other format. Okay, one thing I'll just say generically then. One thing that I wanted to do in Anarchy Arcade's quest system was when somebody completed a quest, I had to trigger another quest, and also I wanted to hide and unhide objects in the world at that event. So building something that into your dialogue where there's a success or a fail state for interacting with the NPC can come in handy as well for doing those kind of events.
The way I look at it is that the like keywords can activate events, and an event is a very generic thing. It's just a string and maybe some numbers. So I think that we can work something like that out.
Yeah, a challenge I had was I don't allow scripting in my game, so everything had to be more like a wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me take one screenshot and then I'll be ready to present because I'm going to be presenting through screenshots or videos. Hang on.